Hi, everybody. You are listening to Judging Meghan with your host, Meghan Judge. Okay, so I'm excited to have my guest on today, but first I'm going to tell you a really embarrassing story. So my husband and I went out to dinner with a couple last weekend, and they're this great couple, so fun. Like, sadly, they lost their house in the Palisades fire. So we were kind of talking to them, and I was telling them, you know, like, it's a form of grief, what they're going through right now. Like, if you live in LA, which Lindsay, my guest, does, correct, Lindsay? I haven't even asked you if you're still local to LA.
No, I'm a little further south.
Okay. So yeah. But like was in LA, understands LA. These fires have been horrific. I did an episode about this with a psychologist and what people are going through. But I want to remind people that when people go through something like this, it's a form of loss and grief and trauma. And we were kind of talking about, you know, how they're dealing with it, because people kind of move on with their lives, and it's hard to remember that they're still in the thick of it. It only just happened in January and we're just in May. So we were kind of talking about that, and it was, you know, like a serious conversation. And then all of a sudden I look up at the ceiling, and if there's one thing about me, I have the biggest fear on the planet of rats. Like, the biggest fear of, like, for some reason, whenever I see a rat, which thank God isn't often, I'm one of those people that can't function. Like, I will scream. I will lose I'll lose control, basically. So I look at the top of this light in this restaurant, and I see what appears to be a small gray face. Okay. And this light, Lindsay's face is just lighting up. I see this, what appears to be a face, and it just kind of like pops in and goes away. And I look to my husband, who knows what a nutbag I am, and that I freak out about this stuff. And I go, Ron, that's a rat. There's a rat in the ceiling. There's a rat in the ceiling. Just could not control myself. Then I tell my friends that are sitting across the table, they were like, yeah, that looks like a rat. Next thing you know, I make my husband go to the host stand of the restaurant. Thank God that I did not scream out rat, because then the restaurant, it's closed. It might as well go out of business, right?
Yeah, you put them out of business.
So then they turn around, the husband stands up and he walks up, because it looked like it was just going to fall on the table, right? The husband goes and looks, the husband, like the couple that we were with, and he goes, it's not a rat. It's not a rat. Like, he says it quietly, though. It was like a giant thing of dust that was it going in and out, like blowing in and out with the air. Oh, God. I almost destroyed this restaurant, because I'm surprised I didn't scream, nothing. I was as calm as I possibly could be. So then the host comes over, and I just was like, I am so sorry. Thankfully, everyone thought it was funny, but only that kind of thing would happen to me. So I guess, the point of the story is, do not ever jump to conclusions like your friend Meghan, because I tend to do that. I'm a complete drama queen. And it was just a giant dust ball, and we're all fine. And the meal was delicious. And I'm also not going to be doing anything like that anytime soon. Anyways, so that's my typical something that happens in the day of the life in my own life. Lindsay, any thoughts? Has that ever happened to you?
I definitely overreact to things, and the whole time you're telling the story, I'm like, well, it's kind of fucking nasty that there's like a giant dust ball over your table.
I agree with that, and I will not give the name of the restaurant, but I was just so relieved that it wasn't, it was the high ceiling.
It wasn't a rat.
It wasn't a rat. So it could have been anything, to be honest, and I would have been terrified. We've all been put here for a reason, and we all deserve acceptance.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.
I'm a trauma survivor from a really young age, and I have been diagnosed with complex PTSD in the past few years. I've been surrounded by death and abuse much of my life. I've been dragged through the mud and have been to the point of not wanting to go on anymore. Through my interviews with other survivors, I've learned that there is a way out. From recovering to surviving and thriving, we all have the strength to come out the other side.
You are listening to Judging Meghan.
So Lindsay Abernathy, I am so honored to have you on my podcast. When I saw your bio, I was very excited because your story is it's not going to be an easy one to tell, I know, but in the bio, it mentions my favorite TV show, which is The Walking Dead, which, if you know me, I binge watched that entire series. Actually, I'm on season 11 right now because it's really slow to end on season 11. I can't get through it. I'm sorry. You weren't on it at this point, but it started to jump the shark like severely at this point. So, but the first several seasons, I could not walk away. And it's the kind of show that you would never, ever think that I would watch. It's like you feel like you are living in The Walking Dead. So we're going to say that. But you, for many years, were featured in The Walking Dead, I believe. You were also one of the characters' stand-ins. And you now have your own podcast called Bitch is a Bad Word. You are also a activist for women that are dealing with domestic violence. And I am so honored to have you on the podcast. And I know that was a giant mouthful. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I love your show. I think I love your platform. It's amazing. And my journey started, I've been in show business for a very long time, but on The Walking Dead, I was approached by a friend of mine who was in casting, and she's like, hey, there's this like zombie pilot coming and you look a lot like the lead. So would you do me a solid? It's like 6 weeks. Can you just be her stand-in? And I was like, I say yes to everything in film and TV because it's amazing. Just to be on the set is so awesome. Mm-hmm. But everyone, including the woman who I stood in for, who's a very dear friend of mine still to this day, was like, this is okay, the pilot is going to air and then that's it. We'll see you guys never. So to have it be 12 seasons later is bananas based on the fact that it was a zombie pilot. And that's kind of the way it went. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll totally do it. And then I looked at the woman's picture. I'm like, yeah, we do. We could totally be sisters. And I came on set and the UPM was like, wow, great casting for the stand-in. This is, it's perfect. And so I texted my friend who does the casting and I was like, dude, you nailed it. They're super stoked. So I was doing my friend a favor in casting, which you should always do your friends favors in casting. Mm-hmm. But it also ended up being one of the coolest experiences of my entire life because it did continue on after the pilot. We made such great friends with so many people. The, shooting was like night shifts, like night shoots in Georgia, hot AF, mosquitoes, chiggers, ticks, everything you can imagine. We even had a guy, I think it was our boom guy, someone in the sound department, or maybe it was our main I actually think it could have been one of the main actors. I'll have to verify. Had chiggers on their male.
What is balls. A chigger? I don't even know what that is.
It's like a flea.
Ew.
It's bigger. Uh-huh. And they love hot, warm, sticky places.
Ew.
And they burrow into your skin.
Oh my God. I just talked about rats. Now I'm afraid of chiggers. Why are you doing this to me?
I would be more afraid of ticks and chiggers. Ticks are and women, humans can get ticks too.
Yeah. I grew up on the East Coast. So yeah, ticks are everywhere.
We were covered in tiggers.
Ticks. And it would have to do checks all the time because they're really dangerous. Yeah. You can get Lyme disease.
Well, that was kind of our joke, and you could kind of get sexy about it. I'm going to go check them for ticks.
I can't even, because my husband was an actor for 30 plus years. So, and I was, I moved to LA to act, but I did more theater and singing. But the business, when you go on those sets and night shoots are just horrific and not fun at all. It's like a complete different sleeping schedule. But the show in itself, and we can kind of get into this as well as we go around your real story and why you're here. But when I saw Walking Dead, and I've been glued to my TV watching it I probably watched the full first season last summer in 1 week. I just didn't walk away from my TV. It was insane. Okay. And then I started to, it's been off the air for what, like, I mean, it's still on in other forms, but I was watching it so far behind everyone else that I would go places and be like, have you been watching The Walking Dead? And they're like, that was on a decade ago. So, and I bring up all the characters and be like, well, Carl and Rick and, could not get over it. So let's talk about that again in a second. But what I really want to hear about is why you're here. I would love to hear about your story, kind of where you're from and, why you do what you do now to try and help other women.
Of course. Yes. Actually going back to The Walking Dead, I was on the show for a long time and I stood in for Sarah Wayne Callies. She played Lori Grimes and we stayed friends. It was like one of those sets where you just, because you're doing night shoots, you like live in this microcosm of just, we work all night and we sleep all day, but we were both mothers. So like we'd work all night and then come home and like drive our kids to school and then go to sleep. But we had super bonded. And then after her character moved on the way she did, I came on in season 3. I played Rowan and I was like the governor's lady friend in Woodbury.
Wait a second. Okay, now I know. Yes, I know. I remember this. Okay, go on.
I was like the first woman on the show to wear a dress.
Yes, I remember. Okay, but I also, like, not to interrupt you, but I was so upset when I'm not giving anything away because most people have watched the series at that point by now. Yeah. But it was that I was so upset when she left the show because I loved her. But I'm glad that when she left, you actually got cast and you were able to stay on.
Yeah. I was super cool. No, Lori was great. She was a big fan favorite, and it was tough for her to leave for sure. And she's gone on to do some really cool things, including she is the co-owner of my studio that produces Bitch is a Bad Word. So we ended up coming full circle. We stayed friends for a really long time, but then she moved to Canada, and then I was still living in Georgia, and I was involved in a relationship with my second partner. I had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and then I'd met my ex, and sort of as it goes, when you're in a relationship with somebody, like a pathological person, a narcissist, whatever, their favorite thing to do is to sort of isolate you and strip you from your support system over time, and it's by design. I can only say that with this clarity now because I see it for what it is. But at the time, Sarah, it was a good friend of mine, and a few other good friends of mine were, according to my ex, bad influences, or, why do you want to be in this clown show? Like, all actors are liars. They're professional liars. If you kiss somebody on a show, you're cheating. Like, you could be on this set if it had this, or let me read the script. Oh God, you have to take your shirt off. You look like a hoe. Like, all the stuff that you have when you're with an abusive person, verbally abusive, especially emotionally, is that, like, at one point I was like the coolest chick because I was an actor and I worked on the #1 show in the world. So we went from like a show that, please, can you do me a favor, to like, this is this worldwide global sensation. It's the biggest show on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was pretty cool. And so did most people. And my ex thought it was really cool until like during the love bombing phase of our relationship, where, everything I did, he had me on this pedestal, and, he used to call me a beach rat, and he's like, you say bad words and you're kind of like, a guy's girl, and that's all cool and it's all amazing, and you're an actor and I love it. And then over time, the pedestal, he started, as he stayed on the pedestal and I started going lower, or other people in his world would be on the pedestal at different evolving times. All the cool things that I was doing became a huge problem in our relationship. So, yes, you can act, and he would even help. Like, sometimes he would record an audition for me, and I would read the audition and be like, this chick has her clothes on and she doesn't have to kiss anybody, so this is an audition I can do. And he would help me record it. But then there would always be a caveat. Like, well, I'd really want you to do these things if the kids can be included. So I started doing like Home Depot commercials, or, a bank commercial or whatever, where I could also have my casting could cast my kids. and I could basically take them to work. Like, how convenient for somebody who wants to control you. Mm-hmm. You have no freedom, autonomy. You're now like this working mom with these kids coming with you to work. And so it kind of became just not easy to do anymore. And I went from being on the biggest show in the world to being offered a couple of big things that I had to turn down because it wouldn't work in my life with my ex. And I just knew it. And primarily because like at the time, I mean, I was younger, so you're going to take your shirt off. There's going to be roles where like, I mean, I wouldn't have taken my shirt off roles anyway, because of my kids. I had a rule mm-hmm. that I would be topless, but I'd most likely play somebody's love interest, or I'd most likely play, a girlfriend or whatever. And I just knew that would be a massive point of contention, to the point where it's not worth coming home to having that fight all the time, or the walking on eggshells to even ask if this is cool if I do this show. So it just sort of went by, like, it just, I just started declining everything. And if you haven't, and my agents, oh my God, bless their hearts, they were like freaking, they stayed with me forever. And I just kept saying, sorry, decline. And it became just part of my past. Like I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's where my ex sort of wanted me, and the control was real. And I didn't know that that's what it was. But so anyway, part of my support system, somebody like Sarah even as well, was like, the vibe wasn't there. And then, they're in your ear telling you that all of your closest people, they're pointing out all their problems. And so you start to believe that. Mm-hmm. And you're like, maybe if I listen to this person, because we talk about on Bitch is a Bad Word, like love bombing. And it doesn't make a lot of sense until you're in it. And it's like somebody that can just like shower you and love you and adore you and think you're the most amazing person ever. You get addicted to that. There's a dopamine addiction, and you're like, your brain's chemically bound to them. Your body's physically, chemically bound to them. And you want this to stay forever. And so when they start to slowly devalue you in that same, like they're in a cycle, so they love you. You're like, wait a minute. Like, you just loved me so much. I was the most amazing person. And now I'm revolting and despicable and you hate me. You are so desperate to get back, for them to get back to that love bombing. You'll do anything they ask. So when they're isolating you and they're moving you away from your support group, you go along for the ride, because you're like, if I resist, this is going to be harder. And maybe you don't even realize you're resisting. Like, you're just happy to do it because you're like bonded to this person and you want to do whatever to keep it going.
Yeah. I mean, I talk a lot. I mean, obviously my first guest of the podcast, I don't know if you know this, was Dr. Nadine Macaluso. I think you had her on as well. Yeah. And like one of my best friends I just did an episode with is Vicki Edwards. And I've done numerous episodes about the cycle of the love bombing in the beginning. And then, especially when you're a mother. I'm a mom. I understand it. I love my husband. Because I have a history of like abuse and stuff, that I'm always like, I can't believe I met somebody and didn't, because it's so easy for a woman to do. Like, we have we have in us, once we become mothers, I think we want so badly to be like, perfect, right? We want our families to look perfect. We want to look perfect. We want to be the perfect mom. But we also have something that men don't have, where we're like nurturers by just who we are, right? As women, and men don't really have that. So it's so easy, I think, for females to find themselves in this, right? Where they're like, oh my God, he loves me and I'm so great and I'm being told all these great things about me. And then you get to a point where you have kids with the person, and then it's like you're kind of trapped, right?
Well, that is the trap. I mean, statistically speaking, and I've spoken to a lot of survivors on our podcast, mm-hmm. They all kind of read from the same dirty playbook.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Nay's husband, like she's been on numerous times, Jordan, who is the Wolf of Wall Street. She talks about that, like how he, got her pregnant really young, and, you're just kind of like in it, and then it's their money. And like right now you're talking about, I mean, I know how that feels to want to be an actress. I was a theater major in college. It was my dream. I always thought I was going to be, in movies one day. And sadly, I was an extra on Party of Five. Like, it never really happened for me, everyone, but I did do a lot of theater. So there you go. But I can't imagine somebody being like standing in the way of you getting offers to chase your dreams or tell you you can't kiss someone on a set when that's like all you really want to do. So everything you're saying all pieces together, and I can't imagine how difficult that was. I just wanted to say that.
It felt like, wow, I've worked so hard to get to this place. Yeah. It's not an easy industry to break through either. And so, it just sort of literally just like took the fun out of it. It just was like, this isn't worth it. And I have kids and, maybe this is the right path and I should switch roles. And he was an entrepreneur, so he worked 24/7. And he was like, you need to stay home. And so what I learned from that experience was that I lost myself. So, and I stood for nothing anymore. I had no real like autonomy or identity. And, we lived a fantastically rich life. So, we had money, we had houses, we had a lake house, we traveled, we took private jets during COVID, places that no one could imagine, extraordinary life. I was the most depressed, lonely person I could ever imagine, because what I realize now is that I was living in this fake life, very controlled. He controlled, I didn't know that this was, I'll be honest, I probably would have left sooner had I understood or listened to a show like mine, what abuse really looks like. Nobody has to hit you for you to be abused. And, just in Australia, they've just like made law that coercive control is like a punishable crime, 14 years imprisonment, which I think is fantastic because that is abuse. Like when someone's controlling your life by way of finances, so he would, I have an email from him where I'm a mom with 4 kids at this point in my 30s, asking like a grown man if I can have a debit card in my name. And I am reading the email, and I still have it, and it makes me like pissed off now. It used to make me sad, but like, I probably wrote the email 3 or 4 times before I sent it, and was like, hey, it would be really important for me and my self-confidence if you could just put the card in my name, because oftentimes I go somewhere and then I show the card and, it's not every time. They're like, you're not this guy, and I'm like, no, I'm not. It's my husband's car. Like, really? So there was a lot of that. And I didn't get a card in my name, Meghan, for like 8 years.
Okay, let me just say something. I think like what you're talking about, and thank you, Australia, because you are always ahead of us. And I think I have some Australian listeners in so many ways. They just outlawed phones until you're, I think, in your teens. Like you cannot have a phone until you're 16. The fact that they put that law in place is unbelievable because this is so common. I hear stories about this all the time about women that are in that exact position. I'm a survivor. My stepfather was abusive, mental abuse. So my mom dealt with it. And it was really horrifically awful. So I know what it's like to be a product of seeing your parent treated like this. And there's so many women out there, when you bring up that credit card thing, that's what they do. They use it as a tool because they know once they have you, right? Like you quit what you wanted to do, your dreams, you have 4 kids, you're kind of stuck. And so for you,
and I'm a high school dropout, which is like, whatever, who gives a shit? Like now entrepreneurs like drop out of high school. Like I dropped out, not because I wasn't capable. But I dropped out because my mom, I had some mental illness as well.
Yeah.
I was taking care of my younger brother, and it was just like I had to go on, and I was going to go work in film and TV on the original Scream. That's how long I did this. But I told him that, and that's what's another thing that these people do. Yeah. They like, in that love bombing, when they love you, when they're like idolizing you, you tell them these like the most vulnerable things about your life. And you're like, oh my God, my mom was this, and this is my worst fear. My worst fear would be to be mentally ill, or my worst fear is this, or I was sexually abused. I was raped in my teens. I told him about the rape, all the things that you say. And they're like, no one's ever listened to me so well for so long. And I want to be so vulnerable with them. And I'm going to give them, like, I'm going to open up just the vault of my emotions. Well, then they open up their vault, which I call the narc vault, and they put it all away. And they're like, we love you. Oh my God, we're so sorry. What a horrible thing. I'm going to I'm here for you. Let me help you through this. And then at some point during the stage of abuse, when they want to control you further, they start pulling those things out of their narc vault to weaponize and use against you. So, you just had a baby, so you don't want to have sex anymore. Oh, you don't want to have sex anymore because you were raped. Oh, you're not, you're a cold fish, most likely because you were raped, or you're being crazy just like your mother. Or, mine would actually call me her name, my mother's name, in an argument. And I'm like, what? Like, why are you calling it? Just so messed up, so many these things. So like all of your biggest, most saddest pain points, they push all those points, they weaponize it, and it's emotional warfare. So you're sitting there going, maybe I am all these things. And it's easier for me to sit here and unpack it really quickly and tell you, like, it seems like it all makes sense. But when you're living in that, you're also living in this fog. You don't really see your life for what it is. You're looking through the lens of their lens that they've created, which their lens is like one of those, those like little red camera you used to put the little cards in and it would change the movie, or
like when we were kids. Yeah.
Like when we were kids. Yeah. That's what they're having you look through, and they're in control of the little clicker, and they're clicking like this is today's version of the life. So you're always left really confused because you only see the world for which they are telling you that it is. Been isolated. You're not talking to the people. If you're being verbally abused, emotionally abused, you don't think it's abused at the time. You're just like, he says some really bad words. He's like pretty nasty. Or you're feeling like maybe an equal participant in some of the stuff because you're like, well, I said it right back because like we're in a fight and he said something mean and I said something mean. So you're never quite sure what you're in. If you've never been exposed to shows like Bitch is a Bad Word or listening to Nadine Macaluso talk, you're just like, this is my life and it sucks really hard, but now I have kids and I want to keep my family together. And, going back, like I didn't have any financial means. I don't have even a credit card in my name. I don't have a job to go back to. But I'll tell you, Megan, there's people who have degrees with like 8 letters behind their names and they've been at home for 15 years and you're not getting a job really easily either.
No, this is like a common theme in women, especially, but it's the women like you or my friend Vicky that I brought up or Dr. Nay. It's people like you guys that are making a change for other women because I hear you unpacking and and I know you've told this story and you do what you do now to help other people, but it's like the cycle of living in this feeling of doubt, like, right. Where you're making excuses, where you're like, well, maybe it's not so bad. Like, look at I have this lake house and I have this and I have my 4 kids and I have it could be so much worse. I could be homeless. I could be living on the streets. I do that. I think as women, especially women. And by the way, I'm so sorry that you were raped as a young person. And, it's almost like these men too, they target people that have gone through some horrific trauma. They use it against you. They take the points. I've heard these stories so many. I've been doing this podcast 5 years. This is just a common theme of female survivors that come on my podcast that tell these stories. And it's people like you, Lindsay, that go, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. So by you telling your story, other women hear it and they go, you know what? Like, I don't need to live like this. The worst is when somebody that is experiencing what you experienced and they cannot get out and they're not ready. It's almost like it's an addiction, right? You were addicted to being married and love. I'm not trying to speak for you, but the cycle of doubt, I think would be, without experiencing what you went through and talking for you, has got to be the hardest period to get out of, where you stop making the excuses.
Well, listen, I knew I would see the reaction of my family when they were around him. He also had a lot, like the control was more just not just me. He had family on the payroll. We had like, there was a lot of different things that I see that were like most likely control tactics. So but I would see the reaction that my family would have in their presence. And they'd be like, what are you doing? So, and some of my best friends were like, what are you doing? Why this person? Like, they're so mean to you. There's this, there's that. And there's a lot of my friends who experienced huge fights, like bad things where I'd have to like leave with my kids. And, you know, I'm a statistic of 1 in 7. And I would I say when like I left for like a weekend, or, you know, it was so bad that I like got on a plane and I flew to my family's house in Canada. Like I tried to leave many times, but in addition to the addiction part, like when I was like, I love him. This doesn't make any sense to anybody. But then now I'm like later learning, maybe it wasn't like I was addicted. And so when you're in that space, but this person's also saying like, hey, you're kidnapping the kids. Hey, you're doing this. Hey, you got to come back. You know, when you have kids and that's the trap, you have very limited options of what you can do legally as well. So it's not like you can just abscond with the kids and be never coming back. You have to go back. My show is, the purpose of it is to say like, why don't we start leaving at the first red flag? Like let's stop being nice girls. Like, let's say no, let's do this. So, I mean, I can go back all the way to the first time I met him and I was flogged in the face with a red flag that I chose to ignore. What
was that red flag? I'm just curious.
He had a background. He had a criminal background in DV. And I was like, well, I can maybe, and he told me she was crazy and this all, and I said, okay, well.
A DV is domestic violence, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Just to clarify for everyone else.
Yeah. So shit, that's like the first, I should go, you know, what's the point? Why wait around and figure out if he's telling the truth? But by the time I found out, I was pretty much like our relationship had moved really fast. We were going on within very quick. He had like taken me away to a very extreme exotic vacation, which I will tell you didn't feel good the entire time I was there. It was like, this doesn't seem like, it didn't seem safe. It seemed very quick. But then, when I would mention it, like, I don't know if there was another trip coming right after that. Let's go on this. I'm like, I don't think I can do that. Oh, you're just not spontaneous. Oh, you're just so boring. And I'm like, well, I'm not boring. Okay, I'm going on the trip. And there'd be like, they could just bend your mind in these ways where you're like, if I don't do it, I'm this. And I don't want to upset them. I want to go participate. But I literally cannot remember like a single trip that I planned, or like, it was always like, we're going on this really fantastic trip, but we're leaving in 6 hours, or like, we have to go in an hour. The plane will be on the runway. Like everything was very chaotic.
But also you were really young too, right? So in your head, it's like, oh my God, like this is like a fairy tale, I would assume, you know, like,
well, no, like they have the mask. They are there. They are, they're like putting that fairy tale to you. Like, wow. And I wasn't quite healed from my other marriage. And you know, there was like a lot of things that I can look back, just, you know, pulling back the lens and go, okay, wow. But like all these red flags that happen, or like a comment that would be made that was just like, I know better now. I would never accept that. Or, you know, this happened to me, but I hear this happening all the time. They love to get into an argument in the car with you. And then they're starting driving erratically and going really fast and like grabbing the steering wheel or moving, you know, you're like, what the hell? Like your life is in their hands. But what I realize now, those tactics are all ways for them to flex their power and to scare me. Whether or not they were going to actually like run the car off the road, who knows? But I mean, they could have, the way that they're driving. But to, you know, put somebody in a car and then start a fight with them it's dangerous, right? It's like, that's the number one, like, why would you do this? So these were all these instances that happen over and over and over again. And like I said, I did try to leave and I'd come back. And when you come back, they're like, I've read all the books. They're sending you freaking Instagram memes. They're telling, you know, like, I'm going to change. I'm only like this because I'm an entrepreneur and my job's really stressful. And we just had babies and, you know, like I was cheated on, and he's like, well, you're not meeting my needs because you just had a baby. Like, but that was I'm like, huh? Like, that's okay. But I allowed it. I tolerated it. I put up with it, and I kept giving him excuses as well. And be like, well, maybe he is right. Maybe when the business sells, we'll be maybe when the renovation's done. But I found in our situation, we just kept adding to the chaos. So like nothing, I don't think if I stayed even today, like nothing would ever have been done. So there was like nothing in our life was ever to like 100% complete or, sorted out. Like even when the business was sold for an insane amount of money, then that was like, he created this other like thing that was chaotic. It was just like, life was never going to be chill. And what I realized that like no amount of money that you could have can like truly change a pathological person who wants to control you. It just gives them like, it gives you more shiny things to distract you from like the reality that you are in a really bad situation. There's really no difference between like you and someone in your imagination that you imagine domestic violence is like a trailer park and a guy coming home in a wife beater and like beating his kids and having a Budweiser. That's what we're indoctrinated to believe. It's like all, but it happens. And I think happens in situations like mine where I literally was like, I can't drive my Range Rover to a shelter. I cannot he was, even after I left, he was like financially controlling me. And he's like, look at all your jewelry. Look at all your, look at you. Look at all the stuff you have. And I was like, I can't buy groceries. And he's like, well, it sounds like a personal problem. Look at all that you have. And I'm like, I can't tap to pay with my Cartier. It doesn't work.
No, I think that I love that you're bringing this up. It's horrified that it happened to you, but I think it is such a valid thing. Like some people might listen to this and be like, well, you still had this and you still had that. But I know people that have gone through this and it's like it's their money, right? Mm-hmm. And you're just like living in it almost like you, and I hate to say this and correct me if I'm wrong, but almost like you're like a nanny or something, like you work there.
Well, it's actually worse than that. Yeah. I think actually a term and it's called, you're living in a prostitute mentality.
Yeah.
You're like, if you behave well, you get this. And they're giving you this service. So like in the conversations are, and this is a training that they're giving you. If you have made an agreement with your partner to not work, whether or not you've quit your job or never had a job, whatever it is, and they are making the money, no matter what the money is, and you have chosen in your agreement to stay home and raise your kids, for that person to go out and make money, make connections, build their network, build their net worth, there's value in what you're creating for that person. And don't let them take that value from you, but they will. They'll like devalue you. Oh, but you get to stay at home all day. You get to go spend. You get to go.
This is so common too with men and women that like, I worked in corporate America for years, and granted, like my kids are at school, till like 3:00, and I'm a podcaster and I'm lucky to do what I do. But, if my husband ever was like, I'm pretty much, and I joke all the time that I'm an Uber driver, because the minute I pick up, and I have a 15-year-old girl and an 11-year-old girl, so all I'm doing is working and dealing with like crying and telling me that they hate me. And it's like, being a mother is exceptionally hard. So there's nothing that pisses me off more than when I hear women say, well, my husband says that I don't work, so like I don't matter. Being a mom in itself is, I think, more challenging than the days of me going when working in corporate America.
Oh, hell yeah.
It was hard. That was hard too.
When you're going. Yeah. No one's knocking on the door while you're trying to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
It's a great place to be. And so when you're a stay-at-home mom in an abusive relationship, and again, my relationship turned physical towards the end, but it does not have to be physical for it to be a domestic abuse situation.
Can I ask you another question really quickly? Yeah. So being a mother as well, so there's so many women, I know women listen that have been through this, and I've done many episodes about it, but I think it's so important to reiterate, like, the stage where you were in the guilt and the shame and the cycle and the love bombing, and like Dr. Nay talks about the dark tetrad and all of that, these cycles that you go through, and then being like, wait a minute, I can't even buy gas, or I have to like, you know, like, what do I do? Am I going to have to like cash in like jewelry or something like that? But then do you also worry about what's going to happen with my kids? Because the court system is a completely corrupt other piece of this, right? Yeah. Where it's like, well, because a lot of people just assume, well, if I get a divorce, I mean, we live in California, we have more fair laws than most states, but it is in the back of your mind that you're not going to get 50-50. And I've learned so much about the court system that I'm wondering with you or other women that you talk to, that's like the biggest piece of it, being a mother and being afraid to leave before the physical piece of it.
It's a huge piece of it because the financial control is real and that's part of the like control tactic, right? Is the financial. So they want like, that's the easiest way. I think it's like that's the easiest way to control someone.
Yeah.
If you're like, you know, when you're living in a world, and I say that like, we speak to women, I'm sure women that are listening on the show that we're not wealthy. You can still relate to it, right? I like to highlight that in my particular situation, you know, I couldn't imagine leaving and like taking the place of like, I can't go, so the shelter belongs to somebody who doesn't have anything. I can't go take that place. Like I'm wealthy. I'm well off. I'm like this. I couldn't wrap my head around like, this doesn't make sense because I'm like driving up to my gated house, but I'm feeling so controlled. I'm feeling so lonely, isolated, sad. I did not feel wealthy. I did not feel rich. I did not feel like no matter what I wore. And I mean, I was like towards the end buying like really expensive jewelry because it's like I knew I could sell it. Now I'll tell you, shout out to the Real. I did sell jewelry.
I actually sold to the Real today, believe it or not. Claire, shout out. She came to my house and my husband's like, who is in our house right now? Because he was looking on the ring. Yeah. So that's funny you bring that up. I love the Real. Go ahead.
I'm like, yeah, like I was able to pay for a lot of my leaving expenses. So as wealthy as we were, and I'm talking like tens of millions, like,
yeah.
When I left, I didn't realize that this was happening until sort of later. But these kind of people love a good smear campaign. And I know that it seems sort of like contradictory, like here you are on a podcast talking about your life. Are you not the smear campaign? But I'm telling truth, and, you know, women need to speak out for other women and use our voices to be there for the voiceless. But what happens in a toxic relationship, and you probably don't even know that it's happening, is they're silently or like they're covertly smearing you in your channels or friend channels that you may have left, or their family. You know, they usually have one negative advocate who knows the bad behavior is going on, has witnesses maybe even firsthand, but is like also being controlled by that person, or for whatever reason, they're in a trauma bond. And they're like what we call like their flying monkey. So they're like going off and reporting all this other bad behavior or whatever they think. And so in my smear campaign, it was like, it was all about money. So like when I would leave, I realized that like the people that I thought I could go to, or a couple people that I thought I could go to for support, emotional support, for them to understand like, hey, you've seen it. Like I had to leave because you saw how bad it was. You know how bad it got. The response was, I was the bad guy and you left like because of the money. Like it was all money related, which I couldn't wrap my head around for like a long time, like maybe until a year ago. It was like, wait, no, hold on. I didn't leave because, you know, he had like he lost some money or whatever. I didn't leave because of that. I left because of the bad behavior. I left because of the abuse. Like those are the reasons that I left. And when I left, I did not do it properly. So we tell people bitch is a bad word. And I'd love to tell your listeners, like, you need a safety plan. You need to kind of squirreling away some money. You need to find a friend that you can, you know, I know a woman who like goes to Nordstrom and their like husband doesn't give a shit how much money they spend on clothes and whatever, but they can't have cash. And that was my situation. I never had access to cash, but they charge their card and they get gift cards. And so she's like, I was like, something crazy, like $50,000 worth of gift cards for when she's ready to leave and she can buy groceries or whatever. So I didn't have a safety plan. I thought that when I finally the straw that broke the back, that the family court would work out, that I'm okay, or I'm better off than most. And when I leave and I find safety for myself and my kids, and emotional safety for my kids was my biggest thing. Like they were stuck in such a horribly hectic life that I saw the emotional toll being taken on them and the emotional trauma that I was like, I have to go. This is it. I'm breaking the cycle. I'm done. This is not happening. My kids will not either turn out like this, nor will they put up with this. I'm done. And I left. I had $40 in my wallet. And I'm like, okay. And I had a credit card. And I figured that would go pretty quickly. He would figure that out. And what's crazy is like I packed very quietly. We had a house where you could come out one side and you wouldn't see on the other side. And we had cameras. So I had figured out where the cameras were, and I could start packing things during the day into my car, knowing that they leave at lunchtime for an hour. So I slowly packed my Range Rover. And I tell took everybody to school. My oldest daughter was at college, and my youngest daughter, who knew, I was like, we're leaving tomorrow. We're not coming back. Take whatever you need. She was like, okay, thank God, thank God.
So she was ready to go.
She was beyond ready to go. She lived probably as a young woman living through it. She lived through so much emotional.
How old was your youngest when you left?
My youngest was 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and they experienced, I did I had no doubt in my mind. I should have done it years and years and years and years ago. But again, I always felt like if I'm more quiet, if I silence myself, if I keep walking on eggshells, if I just change, or the solution, is I'm in the solution. I can fix this. You can't fix a pathological person. It's not happening. They have to fix themselves. But anyway, when I left, I just had packed up this car, and it's the worst scene of a movie you could imagine. I pack it all up, and then he leaves, and I'm like, okay, we have 1 hour. And I realize the car is in his name. Oh my God, he's going to report it stolen. So the only thing after all these years that I had in my name, none of our houses, I had this minivan. And the minivan, which I still drive to this day, was I never used it anymore, but we kept it because we could put a bunch of dogs and drive up to the lake in it, or the babysitters could have whatever. So I'm like, oh my God, I own the minivan, the Honda Odyssey. Fuck yes. So then I'm quickly unpacking the whole car, and I'm packing everything that we did into the minivan. And then I look, because the car hadn't been driven, the tire's flat. So I run across the street to my neighbor, and I'm like, do you have a tire pump? And he's like, I'm like, don't ask any questions. Just and I was like, go around the side so that he doesn't see the camera. Yeah. And so then I'm pumping the tire. We get in, my daughter gets in, and we're my dog in the car. And I realize that the Range Rover is parked behind the car, and I can't find the key. The key must be packed in the minivan somewhere. And I'm like, oh my God, now I can't move the other car. And so I have to drive through the grass, and we have a circular driveway. And so I'm the only way out is out and around. So I drive through the grass, we leave. I have 1 mile of gas in the car. I ended up stopping at a friend's house and we lived in this country, back country roads in California. I stop at a house, a really good friend of mine. I was like, I need your truck and a gas tank, and not to ask me any questions. And he's like, okay, here you go. And so I run to the gas station, get gas, pass my ex along the way when I'm in the other car. It was insane. And then I
Did he see you?
No, I'm in a truck. So I'm in my friend's truck at this point.
Okay.
I'm we still duck. We get gas, we fill up the car, and we go to a hotel. Then I guess he kind of realizes maybe after a few hours, where are you? And his first response was you, I don't know if you can cuss on the show,
no,
but
I
you
do all the time. Yeah.
Okay. You fucking bitch. You destroyed the grass driving over in the car, and you broke a sprinkler head. You owe me $250 or whatever, it was. I'm like, that message was the most important message to me, because I felt so bad that I ruined the brand new grass, because we worked really hard on this grass and the sprinkler system. And I was feeling guilt and almost ready to go back and be like, oh my God. I feel so bad. I did this, and then I'm like, and then in that moment, I was like, that I was thinking about the house and then I was thinking about the life and I was like, oh my God, like this is real. I'm leaving. And I had some support from a really amazing friend, who was paid for the hotel, but we're like in a hotel. I'm living out of a hotel in a storage unit. And what's crazy, Meghan, is that there was other women living in the storage unit. I was like, wait, these people aren't just storing their wine and their extra stuff. Like there was people coming in and out. And I don't think because, again, like my friend that put us in hotels, she put us in like a really nice hotel. So life wasn't really still reality, but we were survivors. We had just left a huge life. And within, by the time I think maybe he went in and realized we weren't coming back. I didn't take anything of I took all of like the kids' like artwork and handprints. Like it was kind of fascinating, the things that I took in hindsight, but I left like a huge pile of cash in the office because I was like, oh, if I take that, I'm stealing. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't have been stealing.
Yeah.
Like I contributed to this, but I bring it all back to the point where he's like, I'm not going to give you $1 of money, like nothing, not $1 is going to go into your mouth to feed you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, so I've left, it's bad. And his stance was, you broke up a family. You broke up our family. You bitch, I hate you forever. That was kind of the position. And I'm like, yeah, but I had to leave. And I'm thinking deep in his heart, he knows I had to leave. But the financial control continued. The financial abuse continued. And I mean, I think I saw 14 grand over the next few years that we spent in family court, of which most of it went to a lawyer. And I didn't get sorted out in family court. I didn't choose the right attorney. His attorney, and I mean, he would be in court texting me going, I feel so bad for you. I'm sorry to talk, but this is a very, very common theme and part of why women don't leave. Like one of my very best friends is still good. You think when you leave that you're like, okay, I finally did it. And this is why people don't leave, right? Because they're like, I don't want to have to deal with, like, what if I lose 50% custody of my kids? Which is very common because you're a mother and you don't want to only see. So it's like the trauma of actually going through the relationship. Then there's the trauma of the actual leaving. Then there's the trauma of being like living out of a storage unit and not having a penny. Then you have to use all the funds to pay for the legal fees. I don't even want to know how much money you spent in that because it's got to be millions. Crazy. Well, and it doesn't get resolved.
It doesn't get resolved.
It doesn't get resolved.
Even after it's over, it doesn't get resolved. So once your divorce is finalized, right, then you're still dealing with like the aftermath of the narcissist.
Yeah, you're still co-parenting at this point.
With a narcissist.
Yeah. So it's not, I will say that like my situation is to this day, and as hard as the journey was, and I never went back. Mm-hmm. I mean, I went back for like thinking I could do, like we could have dinner together or we could be like a healthy co-parent. Like that was such bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like so delusional. That's not possible. I kept I was still in the trauma bond. Yeah. So what I realized is that like I left and then I was like, well, yeah, of course you can come over and put the kids to bed. Like that seems healthy, but that wasn't healthy. And it took me a long time. And I tell a lot of who our listeners are, we call them our besties. Like you really need a period of like non-engagement. Like you need to not engage so that you can detox and like really kick your addiction to that pathological person and be disattached so that you can just do really put them in a compartment that you can heal personally and then can co-parent with them in a way that they don't trigger that response again. And that's like easy. Like I'm still working on this daily. It's easy.
How long ago did you actually like leave compared to now?
For me, I left in 2021.
Okay. So it's still fairly new. And then you went through all this stuff.
Our kids, we have young kids. Yeah. So it's like going to go on forever. And but there's all these different ways that, I will say it's better on the other side. It took me a long time to like, how am I broke? I could not, Meghan, I had to go to 3 banks and beg them I finally got like a small credit union to give me a bank account because I had no credit. I had, and I look back on conversations where I'm like, shouldn't I be like thinking about credit? He's like, what do we need credit for? You're rich. Like, you just need cash. Like, don't worry about your credit. And I'm like realizing that's control. I have a foundation here in Southern California called the BFF Alliance. And we're a 501c3. I'm helping a woman who they were super loaded. He had stacked all the debt in her name. So she came out with like insane debt that she didn't even know was happened, like that had existed. So I always say, like, check your credit report while you're, in your relationship. If you're thinking about leaving, like, just sort of see where you sit. But for me, I had no credit. I had no money. I had no, like, my support system was really far away. And I had to get a cosigner on my apartment. Like, how to say it out loud and to be like, and then they still lived in like our big house and they still like, and we're still in court. And I'm like, their lawyer just out-lawyered my lawyer and they would defer. Meanwhile, I'm just like, I need support. And for my case, it was like, I ended up, you would die. I can't say, I think I get in trouble when I say the number out loud, but you would die. It's like, not like, how is this even possible? And so what I realized is, like, when it came to, like, I need to advocate and I need to start sharing my story and helping people along the journey to understand that, like, it's going to take planning and you need to disassociate while you're still with that person. Like, you need to start detaching from the person that is abusing you while you're in it so that you can make better choices. If you're in immediate danger, it's not safe. Like, get the hell out. Like, don't. There's the hotline. There's a bunch of there's resources for you. But if you can start getting to a point where you can systematically just like get, your documents together. Like, it took me forever to get like my original green card back or my birth certificate back. And all the time that I was trying to get these documents back, it would all come with like some sort of deal or some sort of like hook. So there was like all this time where I'll do this for you, but you have to do this for me. And the control and manipulation through all the time afterwards was something I never expected. Like, I'm not surprised. Like, it totally tracks, but it was hard at the time to deal with it going. And again, back to that prostitute mentality of like, okay, you'll give me 10 grand or you'll pay my rent. Like, no, he should be doing this. Like, but he had made me believe that I had no value. And I remember a conversation where I said to him, or maybe a text, I can't remember, where I said, like, you got to go build this insane company and sell it. And like, when I met you, like this was our journey together. And like, I created value for you by staying home and raising our kids. And he's like, you did, Lindsay, you did. But you took said value with you when you left and you broke up our family. That's his mindset. I will never in a million years, and I promise you, I have tried at length and at like almost sickening to myself how many times I've tried to convince this person they're not seeing the whole picture. They're not seeing the whole picture because they don't want to see the whole picture. Like, that's the best. They're telling their narrative. That's their story. And I'm like, but you keep, like, there's a comma, not a period, because of the abuse. And he's, nope, you left. So
let me just ask you one thing really quickly, not to interrupt, but I'm notorious for that. When you said something that struck me. I mean, you've said a lot of things that struck me, but there's could be somebody listening right now, or I know there's people all over the place that are living in the place where it's like, I really want to leave. I'm being controlled. How do I get out? And you said something that really struck me, which was, I could have taken the cash. I could have taken this. I could have taken that. But I really wanted to take the handprints. I really wanted to take this, or I really wanted to take that. And I think it really goes back to, like, none of this stuff matters. I mean, yeah, it matters. Like, but if I were to ask you now, because I have a best friend that has dealt with something very similar that I'm going to connect you with, who's been on my podcast. And I say, and she's like built her whole life back up. She left a lot of money She is putting herself through graduate school. I look at her and I'm like, you're a freaking badass. And it makes me want to cry because when I met this person, it's my friend Vicky. She's been on a couple of times. And I met her and I was walking the Strand I live in Manhattan Beach near my house. And she listened to my podcast because of Dr. Nay. Like that's how we connected. And I saw her and I recognized her from Instagram and she was crying. She had like tears in her eyes. She was at that point where she had left. And she left, I think, around the same time as you did. And I've said to her, you know, because she still struggles, like I'm sure you do, where you're like, God, I had it so good. I had the Range Rover and like I had this and I had that. And then I go, but like, look at you now. Like, would you ever go back? And look at what you've done and look at your kids. Like, look at who you're raising. It makes me emotional, actually, because I'm so freaking proud of her.
Oh.
To think about, like, none of that really matters. It's the handprints. It's the handprints that matter. It's that you freaking did this for yourself because you are a badass. You were on The Walking Dead. And you did it for your kids. And you're doing it for my listeners that might be out there and they're like, I don't want to leave. And you're doing it for me and my girls that are 15 and 11. I'm an emotional person, as you know. Those handprints are all that matters.
Yeah.
I brought up the fires in the beginning of the podcast. Everybody, like, we care so much about these things like money and Cartier bracelets. And like I sold a bunch of stuff on the Real this morning. Like we said, none of those dresses, maybe when I bought them, they mattered. And I was like, oh, I want to keep up with the Joneses and look as good as I can and do this and do that. What freaking matters is you're okay. Your kids are okay. And that you are doing this podcast and you got out. So whenever you start to say to yourself or any of your listeners start to say to themselves, I cannot do this. I cannot walk away. I can't do it. I'm too scared. What do we want to be in, like The Handmaid's Tale? Because that's basically what we're walking into in the world country that we live in right now, not to get political, but I will. You have to stand up for yourself because nobody else will. And you as a parent and a mother did the right thing. So thank you. I mean, I just had to say that because the entire time you were talking, it just like struck me how powerful like we are as women. We suck. We can be so freaking mean. There's a bunch of Karens in my town. I talk about them all the time that I hate. But the women that I connect with, like people like you, I'm sure if we lived close to each other, we'd hang out. This is what gives you your power. No man is ever going to give you what you have, which is a mother. You're still an actress. You can always freaking go back. There's things that you can do. So I like hearing your entire story and like the power behind it. I had to interrupt you to say that because you freaking did it. You did it. So I'll shut up and I'll let you finish, but I hope that you understand like how powerful what you are doing is, because as like, again, I bring up my own story. Like when I stood and I didn't want to be here and live in 2020, I was like done with life. And I remembered that I was a mother first and foremost. And I had 2 kids that needed me. And then I decided like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to try and help people. So that's why I do this. You know, and that's why you're doing it. Yeah. And we need it. So go on.
We need it. It's like, I thank you for saying all that. It's like the power in like every Christmas, you know, I left a fabulous life on the outside. Right. But like I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't change what I feel now. Like it's a long road. I left broke as shit. I'm still rebuilding. There's all the things, and building a podcast takes a long time.
Sure does.
Rebuilding, it's not overnight, right? But what I hope that people take away from this is that like every year when I put those handmade ornaments that I took back on the tree, I'm like, that's amazing. I love this. Like, I can think it's all about my kids. And when I looked at the kids and I saw what they were going through, and it was just such a visceral moment of like, I am going to keep doing this. I lived through this. I am perpetuating the violence. I am part of the problem. I need to see my place in this position and my role in this. Like, I am part of the problem if I stay. And I promise to God, the stats that I have, and the stats the fact that I have 4 kids, one in 3. So I have 4 kids. So one of them is going to experience this. And they may still end up in a situation like this, but not because I'm not going to shut up about this. I'm going to always advocate. I'm really just trying to meet, I have a daughter who just graduated from Berkeley. What's up, Go Bears? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is an amazing woman. Like, but would she have, with the things that she was able to achieve, like, I don't know that I could have gotten my other kids through to that, because it was just, I was a mess. I was drained. I was emotional. Like, I had no purpose. I felt like a nothing. I had no identity. Even like, we would go shopping. This was like I would not even know what to wear. Like, I look back at pictures. I'm like, why the hell was I wearing that? I was wearing it because, like, he's like, this is cute. Okay. Like, I just had no personal identity. Yeah. It had been, and not just like the identity that you lose as a mother in general, when you take on that role, but when you're being controlled and abused by someone, you're just like, I just stopped having an opinion. I just said yes to everything. And then at the same time, and I say this all the time, and it's come back like on me, but I want a listener to listen to me really clearly. You are lying to everybody in your life about the abuse that's happening. So there's a lot of shame that you feel by lying to the people you love. But it doesn't make you a liar. It doesn't make you a bad person, but like the shame that someone feels that living through DV is really deep and rooted, strong, but there is no shame in it. And the people that you're lying to right now about the abuse, that your abusive partner is telling you hates you and they'll never come back, they're going to come back. They're going to be your best friend. They're going to be your advocate. All the people who left that you were isolated from the right ones will all come back into your life. And you will be rich again. And it may not be with money. But go make your own damn money. Like because you can. And all the things that you thought you couldn't be, you are. And your life will be so much richer because your home will be peaceful. You will not be walking on eggshells. You will not be knowing the mood of somebody by the way they park the car in the driveway. Yeah. And making adjustments for it. You'll know what you want to wear and you'll know what you want to say. And you will start to regain your self-worth, your purpose, and you have no idea what you're capable of doing either, which is such a cool thing. And we're told for so long that, a happy life is like a nuclear family and, mom's at home and dad comes home and sits down. We all have dinner. Everybody's happy. We go to baseball practice. It's okay if you break up that family, that nucleus. Freaking blow it up.
It's better to be like that than to be in a situation where you're going to take on, just being a product of living with a stepfather that was a narcissist and abusive to my mom, I carry that with me into my adulthood. My mom didn't leave him until I was out of the house. So it's something you carry with you, but again, we all have things that we have to go through in life. So I think the most important takeaway, I'm learning from you today, and I hope my listeners leave this conversation with is you're going to be okay. I was watching St. Elmo's Fire. Hello, I'm really old. When I was a kid, they filmed that in Georgetown. I grew up in DC, so it's always been one of my favorite movies. And there was a scene, and I don't know if you ever watched the movie. It's a really good movie, St. Elmo's Fire. And there's a scene, and the girl in the scene talks about how she grew up with a lot of money, and she loved Rob Lowe. I don't remember, Billy was his character, and she moved into her own apartment. And her parents, kind of cut her off, and she had to get her own apartment in the scene. And she goes, well, it's my own peanut butter sandwich that I'm eating. It's my own, I don't know if you remember this, but it always that scene, I loved it because it was it's your own and you did it. This is your own life. You're a freaking badass. And I adore you. So we have to stay in touch. Where can people find you?
Yes. Well, I adore you too. We definitely have to get together. So you can find us. So, Bitch is a Bad Word podcast on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your shows. Instagram is big for us. We reach out. I personally respond to everybody. So that's at Bitch is a Bad Word pod. We're on TikTok and YouTube as Bitch is a Bad Word. We also have a Patreon community that we just started last week. And so we have a Patreon group where you can come join. There's free tiers. We're wanting everybody to go in and find their bestie. And then we have a private Discord server that is completely vetted by us. We're vetting for very specific people, but we're making a safe community where people can go in and share their stories, rebuild their network, find, other baddies that are in the situation and really build a community. We call them our bestie gang, and we invite everybody to come join this bestie gang. And we have a phone number, 331-BITCHES. You can give us a call, leave us a voicemail, however you need to feel to get your story out or your voice heard. And I have a segment every Thursday called Bitch Sesh, where I interview survivors, and, you can come on the show and you don't even have to turn your camera on, but you have somebody you can just talk to. And that's what I sort of understand as I'm building the show is people just there's every single person who writes to us the same theme, oh my God, my ex used to do the same thing. Oh my God. So the more we have these, oh my God moments, I think the more we can free these women. And I have to say, my entire relationship with this person, I was a kept woman. And he used to say to me, look how your dumb friends with their dumb jobs paying their dumb bills. You're a kept woman. And Meghan, we need to be unkept. We are unkeeping the besties, just fully owning ourselves and our autonomy is so important. So come join our bestie gang. Find us on Bitch is a Bad Word. I started a new movement. I'm a MILF. But I'm a mother in litigation forever.
I love it. That's amazing. That's really funny, actually. If you're watching on YouTube, check out our hat. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm so glad I met you today, and your story is just so powerful. And thank you for helping so many people, because women need it right now. We need to support each other. If you know somebody you think or you're a close friend of somebody, just be there for them. That's all I can say. Because it might just take one person, or you might have an event where you say, well, if this ever happens, this is the end. Also have an exit plan, which we talked about, always have an exit plan. And don't tell the person, your partner, what your exit plan is, which you did. You had everything, right? We talked about that.
Yeah. And I also say this, the most dangerous time for a woman to leave is when she's telling her abuser she's leaving. So the best thing to do, and I did not tell him I was leaving. I did it, I left and then told him. So it's probably the smartest thing I did of all of the things that I didn't do. Right. But, it's you don't need to have that conversation in person. Even in the best of relationships, you don't have to have I'm leaving conversation. You'll probably end up in bed with them. Send them a text, give them a phone call, but you need distance from your abuser, because that's when they have the higher propensity to just lose their shit on you. And who knows what's going to happen. Yeah. Yourself safe. We always support the hotline. The hotline.org is amazing. You can reach out to them. They have 24-hour support, but it's the safety plan. And it's, just getting yourself in a situation where you can, lean on people. But then for the people that are being leaned on, you have to be patient, because you have no idea when someone's going to and you're going to be on the other side so frustrated. You see it. Why are they not leaving? Why didn't she leave? We're hearing this with the Diddy trial with Cassie. It's Cassidy. It's
it makes me so angry. Yeah.
It's so angry. And everyone's like, why didn't she just leave? Oh, she liked the money. No. Yeah. We're done with that.
Yeah.
You don't know why anybody does the things that they do. But if you're the person that is the bestie for your friend, just be patient and just know that they'll leave when they're ready. And then they may go back and and forth a million times. It's going to drive you crazy. You just have to be cool and be there, be a support for them, and know that, just you being a little bit in their ear and getting loud and not being silent about it is really helping them, even though it looks like it's not. So just don't stop telling the person you're there for them.
Okay. Well, that's huge. You guys, thank you again, Lindsay. This has been awesome. And I'm again, like so inspired by you. Thank you for what you do for other people. Everyone keep going. You matter. Your story matters.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.